Good morning and welcome to Power Breakfast, and in the Mumbai News Center, I am Sonal Bhutra. It's a brand new day. Markets are touching record highs yet again. But first up, let's take a look at the Asian markets. They were subdued in yesterday's trading session, and today as well, stocks are trading mixed in early trade as investors continue to maintain a cautious stance over stimulus negotiations, rising coronavirus cases in the US, and the Brexit talks between UK and European Union. And that's why you're seeing a sea of red in most of the indices. Taiwanese index down around 0.2%, Kospi's down 0.8%, and we are seeing some red on Nikkei as well, which is down around 0.2% as we speak. However, despite all this, SGX Nifty is mildly in the green, so to say. It's on the flat line with some positive bias. It has come off the highs from 13,466. It is now trading at 13,422. So 44 points off the highs of the day. Let's see if that is the trend in our own markets or not. That is something that we will be tracking. But let's talk about the US markets then. Wall Street, ended mixed. Dow Jones dropped 150 points. S&P was down 7 points at close, and the Nasdaq outperformed to end 55 points higher at close, setting a new record close. Meanwhile, COVID cases continue to spike in the United States, taking the case count to more than 1.48 million cases as per data from the Johns Hopkins University. Investors also continue to focus on negotiations around the additional fiscal stimulus. CNBC's Bertha Coombs gets the wrap of all the action on Wall Street.
U.S. stocks finishing the day mixed. The Dow falling 148 points. The S&P 500 was down 7, while the Nasdaq tacked on 55 to close at a new record. Congress is aiming to pass a one-week spending bill to buy more time and keep the government running through December 18th. That according to a senior Democratic aide. Lawmakers are rushing to strike a deal on coronavirus relief. The House plans to vote on Wednesday on the short-term measure, funding that will lapse on Saturday if Congress can't approve a spending bill. And it's a big week ahead for companies making their public debut. Airbnb raising its IPO target price range to between $56 and $60 a share. The U.S. home rental firm's stock market debut is slated for December 10th on the Nasdaq, and it will be one of the largest and most highly anticipated deals of the year. Meantime, U.S. fast food restaurant chain Chick-fil-A is suing top chicken suppliers. Chick-fil-A alleging they artificially raised prices on billions of dollars of its purchases. Lawsuit names 17 defendants, including Purdue Farms, Tyson Foods, Pilgrim's Pride, and Sanderson Farms. That's the action from here in the U.S. Now back to you in Mumbai.
All right, that's the action from the US. But on that note, let's get in some opinion from David Balin of Citi Private Bank and Alan Ruskin of Deutsche Bank on the way ahead for the US market as investors track economic growth in the post-COVID-19 world.
The opportunity set, while COVID was going on, was really associated with technology, right? And technology was a defensive asset. It did extraordinarily well. In fact, it saved a lot of lives and brought us a lot of convenience. As we come out of COVID, there's a lot of factors to suggest we're going to have a rotation, back into the cyclical stocks, back into emerging markets, back into Southeast Asia, back into small and medium-sized companies, because COVID created an enormous market anomaly.
The recent announcements from the Federal Reserve that they're following this flexible average inflation targeting regime, which effectively means that they will tolerate inflation moving up above 2% before tightening. They're going to need, I think, to see the unemployment rate decline sharply, probably back into sort of 4% region before you're certainly going to get on the interest rate side. So I think the most you can hope for is really some adjustment in terms of their balance sheet expansion.
All right, that's all about the global market action, but how will overnight cues impact our own markets? Well, we have our research team joining in bright and early to tell us how the trade setup looks like, what are the stocks that are likely to be in the news, and of course, action from the F&O space. Sonia, let me first up come across to you. What is the market setup looking like today?
Well, given what happened in the last hour of trade yesterday, you can say with a fair degree of certainty that the market is in the complete grip of the bulls. every dip was getting bought, and that buy on dip strategy is something that could continue today, although the SGX Nifty is indicating a flat start. But just to give you the data, FIs continue to buy in this market. In fact, yesterday as well, in the cash markets, FIs bought about 3,792 crores. Put together in December so far, FIs have bought 14,000 crores, and a large chunk of the money continues to go into the banks. So yesterday, we saw 800 crores delivery volumes in SBI and ICICI Bank, 600 crores delivery volumes in Axis Bank and HDFC. However, the domestic institutions continue to sell, so do keep an eye out on that. DI sold about 2,767 crores. The cues from across the globe are not that great today. You have the Dow that's a tad bit under the Dow that was a tad bit under pressure yesterday. In fact, if you look at the overall cues, the Dow down 147 points. More than 14.8 million COVID cases were confirmed in the US. The daily COVID infection rate is also at an all-time high in the US. And the negotiations for additional fiscal stimulus is something that hangs in the balance. So that will be something to watch out for. For our own markets, the Bharat Bandh will take place today as the Farmer Union presses for a repeal of the centre's agricultural laws. So let's see how that shapes up. But the buy on dips is something that could continue, and the mid-cap outperformance as well is noteworthy. So in December so far, the Nifty is up 3%, while the mid-cap index is up 3.5%, and the small-cap index is up almost about 4%. The SGX Nifty for now is indicating a flattish start. Back to you.
Sonia, thanks a lot for that. And now over to Agam, who will list out the stocks to watch out for in today's trade. Hi, Agam.
Good morning. Well, I'll start off with Titan. It's directed its Swiss arm, Faveluba, to scale down operations, and it will not invest any more at this point in time. Of course, we know that COVID-19 has hit the operations of that particular unit, and they've already taken an impairment of 145 crores. Moving on to HOEC, well, it signed a deed to increase its stake in one of its blocks offshore Mumbai to 60% from 50%. And well, it's also in process of raising a loan to follow compliance. Moving on to Canara Bank, its QIP has opened yesterday. It looks to raise 2,000 crores, and it has set a floor price of 103.5 rupees per share. So keep an eye on that one. Well, finally, we have NBCC as well, which has secured business worth 325 crores in the month of November. This is a lot lower as compared to what we saw in October, coming out around 1,100 crores. And Goa carbon production numbers coming in around 14,300 million tons for the month of October, which is valued at 26.2 crores.
Okay, Agam, thanks a lot for that list. And finally, over to Mangalam, joining in with the cues from the FNO space this morning. Mangala.
Well, it was another day, another record close for the Nifty, and another day where the FIIs pumped in a fair amount of money in the cash market, close to $500 million yesterday. And with that, the money that has come in December itself has crossed the $2 billion mark. But importantly, even as the Nifty closed higher, the futures premium contracted from close to 50 points to around 30 points, and that was telling you that some money perhaps may be taken off the table, and that's exactly what took place in the index futures space, where the FII sold over 1,100 crores, and most of that was actually unwinding of long positions to the tune of 12,600 contracts. But this was par for the course, given the sort of rally that we've seen in the markets and the fact that the FIIs are still 76% long in index futures itself. Any upside, if at all, they're looking to play it via index options, and that explains that we saw more purchase in index calls than index puts, close to 13,000 contracts as against 7,000 puts that they bought. There was also a equal amount of writing in both calls and puts. That's telling you that maybe at high levels there could be a bit of a range-bound movement, but that's only something that we will come to know once the markets move on either side. Keep an eye out on the fact that there was a fair amount of writing seen at the 13,300 put yesterday, and on the upside, 13,400 and 13,500 calls were active. Also, watch out for the put-call ratio. That's now sneaking towards that 1.7 mark. Close to around 1.75 is where the markets do indicate that they have seen a fair amount of overbought positions. So that is something we will watch out for as well. And finally, coming down to stocks, HUL was one of the stocks that did rather well yesterday, and we saw the FMCG index actually close very close to a record high. So we'll keep an eye out on HUL. Saw a fair amount of short covering. Also, the other stocks did see some amount of short covering.
Okay, Mangalam, Sonia and Agam, thank you so much for joining us this morning and prepping us for the trading day ahead. But it's time to slip into a short break. Up